with us right now is Michelle Melendez. And Michelle, welcome to Agenda 21 Radio. I'm glad you got on board. There was a little struggle going on there, but welcome aboard to Agenda 21 Radio. I want to just tell you what a great job that you've been doing there in Lahaina and with the fires and everything. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before I go too far? Because like I saw your stories before, and I called Tiffany and I said we got to have her on the show. And I don't know if you know much about what we've done and what we've been involved with the Paradise Fire. We're in Sutter County, and actually I'm in Marysville, California. I think you know this area, right? Oh, unmute. There you go. I think you got to unmute yourself at your end. Can you
Yeah,
unmute?
there we go.
There you
Can you
go.
hear me?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
I got you.
Well,
Yeah.
first of all, yeah, aloha everyone. I actually live on the big island of Hawaii, but my first grew up in Oroville, Chico, and my first job was in Paradise. So all of those towns, the fire in Oroville happened 2 weeks after I was visiting, and yeah. So what happened was my journey. My journey is I'm a fitness and wellness expert for 30 years. So when the COVID happened, I was like, let me start speaking out against this. And then when the fires went down, I started researching it, and I knew something was up. And then when the Hawaii governor, went to the United Nations and started speaking about the wildfire being climate change, I was like, this is not okay. This is an absolute lie. And and I started interviewing experts, and then I wrote the book Great Maui Land Grab. And this is what caused the Maui fire and is your home next. And you can get this at greatmauilandgrabbook.com. And this also, what happened is I just started researching all about why don't trees burn when cars melt right next to them. And
Hmm.
why are the and what happened was the arborist that I interviewed, and this arborist has almost 50 years experience, and he said the reason is because the chemistry of the fire doesn't recognize organic material. The actual chemistry of the fire. It was a different microwave frequency, microwave fire. And when you put metal in a microwave, it sparks up. But if you put a chicken breast or something in an organic material in the microwave, it does not burn. It doesn't, it burns from the inside out. So that's what was happening with all the trees. In fact, the trees with the most water were the ones that burned the most from the inside out. And what happens to water when you put it in a microwave, it heats up really. So that's when I started. It's been a long journey. I'll just say that.
Well, yeah, it has, and we've done quite a bit of research. Of course, I used to live in Magalia, and I was actually an administrator in the Oroville Union High School District for 4 years. And actually, in 2001, when 9/11 hit, which is kind of
Hmm.
22 years ago, I was the principal of one of the schools, and I can remember hysterical staff coming in saying, "The dam's going to be next. The terrorists are going to hit the dam and take it down." And I said, "No, no, I don't think that's going to take some nuclear weapons to do that." And then we got
Hmm.
involved. I got involved. I retired and I got involved with the Oroville Dam situation because I knew that there was something really wrong with the spillway in that whole process. And there's big cover ups going on like you couldn't believe. And so we exposed all that and kept the DWR at bay. But we also have a big problem that the spillway was never repaired properly. And it was interesting, though, but we were reporting on the night of this big spillway in which the sheriff had to evacuate everybody. And I was stuck in my home. I would have died by the flood because there was definitely that dam was really going to go. And if it wasn't for
Hmm.
Corey Honey, the sheriff, to put the water back over the main spillway and bring the water level down, it would have happened. But I was getting reports, oddly enough. Now, this is kind of interesting, oddly enough, from people inside the dam who were some of my former students at the high school. And they
Wow.
were saying, "Mr. Preston," he says, they pulled in with a whole bunch of big trucks. And I said, "Oh, really?" So then they call me back and say, "We want to get out of here. The thing is leaking. We want to get out." And I said, "What are they putting in the trucks?" She said, "Well, they're putting in the nuclear bombs."
What? Oh
What?
my gosh. Yeah.
And I said, "What are you talking about? The nuclear bombs?" Well, of course, these were actually um, nuclear detonation devices, and in the case of a foreign invasion, the dam would blow up and knock out that all dams in California, big dams, are still outfitted with these bombs. And
Wow.
so
Wow. Wow.
it was
Wow.
just is how does that grab you? And then we
Oh,
found
but
out
they're
that
for
there
your
was
safety. They're for your safety.
yeah, that's right, that's right, that's right. And then on top of that, there was a nuclear research center in the middle of the dam. It's been built there and it's been there all along. Um, the the study of the neutrino and neutron bomb technology was discovered in the Oroville Dam. Isn't that interesting? I
Mm.
mean, it's just,
Wow.
they still to this
Unbelievable.
day they still to this day test for radiation. Every month, there's a mandatory test for radiation coming out of the water in the Oroville Dam to see if there's any leakage. But that's
That's
just a
really
few
sad.
sides. But then we had of course, the Paradise Fire, and right away we knew
Hmm.
that that was wrong. I was being called. I was doing my radio show like I'm doing right now. 5:45, people were calling me. 5:30, 5:45 on that morning, and saying, "There's a fire. What do we do?" Nobody's warning us. They had come in and they put in the United Nations roundabouts and traffic calming areas of various streets in Paradise to slow traffic
Hmm.
down. They'd actually built before the fire 3 months before the fire, a huge base camp down there on the Skyway.
Hmm. I know where
And
that's at.
yeah, well, there was a golf course off on the right hand side, and
Hmm.
as you go up the hill. But when the day of the fire, I got my press releases and press passes, and I drove up there, was taking pictures, and I got hooked up with the fire department, and they were going to take me up to the fire as a press person, and we had to stop at the old golf course entrance, and it was a base camp. The base camp was set up. Well, the base camp was a huge facility. It took up all the 18 holes of the golf course. Now, we're talking about buildings, facilities,
Wow.
big light standards up, trucks. One of the reasons why we're stopped is that trucks were pulling out of the base camp, going up into Paradise, and what did they have? They had telephone poles, brand new telephone poles, spools of wire, and men and equipment were going up there to replace the burned out ones. This is the day of the fire.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
we've now had some people who came forward and have admitted to us that they used to work at that base camp for 3 months in advance of the fire. And what were they doing? They were walking around from house to house asking people what was their exit strategy if there was a fire in Paradise. And then coming back to the base camp in the afternoon and putting that into a database. Now you tell me that's not an
Wow.
organized fire. I bet I just
Oh,
blew your
that's
mind.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
This
you did because I actually went up to the fire that Christmas because I was visiting my mom.
right,
And I looked around and I'm like, this is not normal. There would be one house completely intact, no singe mark, no burn, but
right.
all the rest of the neighborhood gone, flattened. And
And
that's
you
not the way fire burns. And then the trees are still there.
right. Well, we spent 28 days researching it with the Epoch Times and others, and we had some, people that had some special skills. We spent all that time when this is what we concluded was that we started with the homes, and you're right, there were a lot of homes that did not burn.
Hmm.
Either they had
Fully.
analog that yeah they did not have yeah exactly they did not have analog or the smart meters, or those houses that had smart meters, the electricity would have been turned off before the fire. In other words, when they're evacuating, and this is what we found, people that were
Hmm.
evacuating turned their switches off, and there was no electricity going through the smart meter.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
what saved their homes. And but the temperature of the burn was either 6,000 degrees inside the homes, because everything was just white dust, wasn't it?
Hmm.
That's
Yep.
that's a nuclear detonation, is what that is. That's what
Yeah.
it's like in Hiroshima without the radiation. So
Hmm.
what they would do is they would hit that smart meter with an X-ray or with a laser, and it
Mhm.
would cause everything in the metal in the walls to explode at 6,000 degrees. 6,000 degrees. And what happens, that just incinerates everything. And you saw
Mhm.
that.
That's
Probably it's
yeah.
hard sometimes to even discern cast iron um, bathtubs. But this is how hot
Wow.
that was. And of course, in the plants themselves, because of all the spraying that was going on, of course, the chemtrails were coming down. I know in Maui because people that I know live in Maui, and they were
Mhm.
talking about that as well. And of course, that storm that was created and all that.
Mhm.
But we had serious for 12 days in advance of the fire. We had serious chemtrailing going on. I mean, they were just dusting us just so thick. Everybody was wondering, why is this coming down? Why are they doing it so hard? Well, when the fire hit, of course, it went up like an
It's
inferno,
yeah.
like it burns real with aluminum oxide. Aluminum oxide being sprayed, caught in the plants, brought into the plants, laying around on the ground, combines with iron. And when it
Mhm.
combines with iron, it burns at about 4,000 degree. It forms a compound known as thermite,
That's yeah.
and that's what
Yeah,
was
well,
going on.
the day before the Maui fire, there's a big haze. In fact,
Right.
my friend has videos or pictures of it, and there was a woman who had a video and said, "What is this white haze that is surrounding Maui?" And so that was the day before. So yeah, for sure. Also, mm, again, my book, Great Maui Land Grab, you can get it at greatmauilandgrabbook.com. It has 9 different weather events, questionable weather events. And one of them is not just the haze, but also the clouds. There were linear clouds. We actually have a man who's an engineer in Maui who studied the weather. The weather has been studying the weather on the Hawaii Islands for 15 years. And he actually saw these linear clouds coming in. And then I have a friend who works for national security who happened to be going over Maui the day before and saw these clouds. She said they were squares. She said the clouds were squares and she could see cloud and then blue sky and then cloud and then blue sky, just like a checkered board for miles, she said. And the thing is Maui sits right in between two harp domes. One harp dome is
Hmm.
sitting in Honolulu and the other one is here on Big Island, right at
Right.
the tip of Big Island closest to Maui. So they have this technology, and what people a lot of people don't understand is if they wanted these fires out, they could have them out very, very quickly because they can seed the clouds and make it rain. And if your viewers want to look up it's called Popeye, the
Hmm.
Operation Popeye, and that was
Operation Pop
when
Up. Right.
yeah, that was when they seeded clouds. I don't know if I can't remember where it was at. I think it was Vietnam or someplace, but they were testing it and it made major, major floods. Major floods. So if they wanted these fires out, they could easily do it. But this is an attack. This absolutely is an attack on the American people and the world because we have Canada, we have Chile, all of these places, and they're burning the same. And then the blue things that don't burn. My
Right.
book has 23 different fire anomalies, and one of the first ones, blue. Why didn't blue burn? Because the blue is the same. So they have a US patent for a direct energy weapons apparatus that uses a sapphire to create a laser. And what is a sapphire? It's blue. So that frequency of blue matches the frequency of the laser, and it actually reflects the energy, so it doesn't absorb the laser. So that's why blue doesn't burn. So we have a blue paper ticket, a blue paper ticket that was pulled out of the white ash. It was literally buried in the white ash, and the guy only saw the tip of the blue, and he grabs it, pulls it out. Blue paper ticket, not singed, nothing. Fully blue t-shirts. This guy found 9 blue t-shirts, no holes, no singe marks, nothing, sitting in the white ash. We have
Yeah.
blue umbrellas, all of it.
Well, the blue wavelength doesn't combust anything. That
Mhm,
from the laser. That's what happens, and that's why people have blue. Some people already knew that and had blue roofs
mhm,
installed, and now you can get
mhm,
the roof coverings that are completely blue. That are, I've had some rain damage because of storms here, 80-mile-an-hour wind storms here in where I live in Sutter County, and blew half my roof off. Literally picked it up and I mean peeled it back. It's just amazing.
Mhm.
But there's a some devices now you can buy, and they're kind of like canvas, but a little bit more sophisticated than canvas, and it's blue. You get
Mhm.
them in blue color. It'll completely cover the top of your roof. And I tell everybody, get that, put that on your house because your house will be safe
Mhm.
from the lasers.
And get your smart meter off. Get your smart
Get your
meter
smart
off.
meter off, right? Right.
Yeah,
Get your smart meter off.
absolutely.
We saw a
Absolutely.
lot of
The
that.
and
We would have. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, a lot of times the in power movement. I don't know if you know, Cal Washington would be really great to get on your guys' show too because he's doing. It's called In Power Movement, and he's doing notices of liability to these legislative criminals that are putting up smart meters, putting up 5G, and he actually has a notice of liability that you can send to them, and he's had people leave legislation because of these notice of liabilities and CEOs of certain companies that are putting up smart meters leave, retire, retire early and things like that. So
What
that's
are they
somebody
called
that
again?
you want to look up. In Power, inpowermovement.org. That's definitely something that everyone should be getting onto. He has a complete website that goes through understanding that we are that this is a U.S. corporation, and the corporation is we actually have power with these notices of liability, and the because we can recontract. So everything is contracts. Everything is contracts.
Right.
And what we can do, and that's the thing people don't understand. This is not a government. This is not a government. These are contracts. So what we can actually do is we can actually send them a notice of liability saying, okay, you want to put a smart meter on my house? Prove to me that it is safe before you do that. You want 5G up? Prove to me that it is safe, and then and then I'm fine with it. Then I agree to this contract. And if you don't, and if you're not able to prove to me, then here's a bill of exchange that and we start billing them. And the thing that people don't understand, and sounds crazy, but with our birth certificate, when people started registering their children with the birth certificate, it actually turned us into merchants. And there's a law called the law of merchants, and this is ancient. This is an ancient law that they are still using today. And when we understand that we actually have power with our signature is actually money. This is how these Rothschilds and all of these banking elite people have gotten so wealthy. And when we start to understand what the law of merchant is, we actually can take back this country. We actually really have more power than we realize. I know it seems that we look at this and people protest, and then they do testimonies. We had 800 people in Maui testifying saying do not put the dump all of the toxic
Yeah.
waste into the Alawalu dump site, and they still did it because people don't have power if they're trying to speak. We have power when we contract, when we show them, hey, you can't do this. This is a notice of liability, and I have an affidavit actually to the governor right now, and it is. I just want to plug my book again because one of the reasons why I want to plug this book is because greatmauilandgrabbook.com is where you can get it. greatmauilandgrabbook.com. It's really good to give to the normie people who don't understand what the heck is going on, but they want to know what happened with Maui Fire. Paradise is in here. I have Captain Matt, who 33-year fire captain, who's talking about Paradise and the Tubbs fire. But what is really more important than that is it shows them how this was an attack,
Hmm.
and how the who owns America. It actually shows people who owns America. There's over 200 resources in this book that shows people how the banking elite families took over America in the Civil War. in the Civil War, they were funding both the North and the South side of America, and both sides went bankrupt. So what happened was the government literally collateralized the United States, our country, and us people. They collateralized us and our property. That's why people pay property taxes. And you don't own it; the government owns it. It's collateral. It's collateral for the U.S. bankers, and that shows everybody what the heck is going on. When I went to Orville, I visited an elementary school. A friend of mine who I knew since elementary school, very much on the normie path, and she calls me up, and she's getting evacuated, and she goes, "Michelle, what's going on?" And I said, "Read chapter 10 of my book called
Right now,
Who
stop and read
Owns
it.
America." Yeah,
Right.
and so it's important for us to know what the heck is going on.
So in terms of the let's go back, and I'm going to jump over to Paradise again because we just had another fire over there called the Park Fire, which burned even more.
Yeah,
It burned the northern
yeah.
eastern section of Plumas County and all that other stuff. I used to live in Plumas County for about 11 years, so I used to drive actually from Gray Eagle all the way down to Oroville just about every day. So I got to see a lot of
Mhm,
things happen down there, and there were several
mhm.
forest fires that were burning along the road there. In fact, we had one uh, when I was the principal of one of the schools there. Forest agent walks in, an agent walks in and says, "Do you have this student, this student, this student?" And of course, we did, and they had set that one of the big fires down there by Jarbo Gap. Complete, it was an amazing fire, and I had to drive through that a couple times and be escorted and all that stuff. But didn't realize until 2 months later that my students had set it on fire. Two Russian kids, two Russian kids deliberately set it on fire, and they're still in jail, I'm sure, because that
Wow.
was just incredible. That was a deliberate set. But
Mm,
that's something completely different than what started everything in Paradise and started it in
mm.
Maui. What was your research on the satellites and what happened with the satellites?
The satellite images for the, weather?
Yes,
Is
any
that
or
is that what
any
you mean?
activity such as microwaves or lasers or anything like that.
So we don't have a lot of information on how it happened, but we do know that they have this technology. There's a drone called the Morpheus with Lockheed Martin, and it actually has microwave capability. There's a U.S. patent that's in the book and on my website as well, but it talks about how the drones actually have microwave frequency energy and their reasoning is this is so it'll stop other drones. So they can actually stop other drones with microwave frequency in its tracks. But here's the thing. Lasers don't have to come from satellites. They can come from a boat. They can come from drones, and they actually show there's different videos that I've seen with drones actually spraying down fire, like in Ukraine. There was a drone recently that I saw that actually was just releasing fire out uh, to
Right,
for
right,
the against the troops. I don't think it was that. I don't think it was that. I think it was either from it could like I said, it could be from a boat, or it could be from a drone like Morpheus. I don't know if that was it, but it doesn't have to come from a satellite. So it can be really close. It can be a lot closer. And also, people were talking about. I have friends there who live in Maui, who were saying that there were people going up to Haleakala, which is the mountain there, the volcano
hmm
there, which and they were gassing up. They were taking a lot of gas up to Haleakala and gassing up different things. We don't know what they were gassing up, but they could be easily gassing up drones up there. So we just don't know. We do know they do have this technology, and we do have the U.S. patents for them. The U.S. government, there was an act called the Direct Energy Weapons Acquisition Act, and I believe that it was in the it was in the 90s, I think it was. I'll have to look up the date, but the Direct Energy Weapons Acquisition Act of Congress literally took the program for the direct energy weapons. It was a private, I'm sorry, not private. It was from the DoD, and they actually couldn't bring it to fruition. They spent over $6 billion in the 60s on the direct energy weapons project, and they couldn't bring the full program to fruition. So Congress took it over with the Direct Energy Weapons Acquisition Act, and that is not it's in the book, but you guys can look it up as well. Direct Energy Weapons Acquisition Act of Congress. So
Now,
they do have this
the
technology.
one of the things that was very striking to me when I first started discovering this myself and looking into it. And again, we're titled Agenda 21 Radio. We got into the weather and geoengineering business about 14, 15 years ago. And chemtrails were something that were occurring, and I just never gave it any never mind. And I'm an airplane freak. I love airplanes, and I just love flying and all that stuff. And always would recognize a contrail as a contrail. I didn't think anything of it, but then I did notice that
Hmm.
the contrails were sticking around a lot longer as you
Hmm.
got into the 2010 era. And uh, up here in Sutter and Yuba counties, the chemtrails are very, very visible. But I
Hmm.
didn't. It took me a while to really realize what was going on, and I became good friends with Dane Wigington of Geoengineering Watch, and I'm pretty sure you know who he is.
Yeah.
And so when we started kind of getting each other's show and everything, he was going off on this stuff, and I'm kind of like, nah, this can't be real. And then the more and more I thought about it, and in fact, it was this radio station that used to be in a different location in Marysville, up on a mound and everything. I'd come out of the station in the evening hours around dusk, and I could look to the northeast, and I could see dozens of planes at times just streaming down these trails. And so
Hmm.
I finally went to somebody at Beale and I said, "What is this business?" And they said, "Oh yeah, it definitely happens. Definitely, this is." And they pointed me in the right direction, so I was totally clued in on what was going on. And then I started finding out about the Rand Corporation and what the Rand
Uh-huh.
Corporation was doing with energy weapons and lasers and things like that. There's a whole host of them. But one of the things that really struck me was the involvement of a couple of the I guess you would say space agencies, not agencies, but contractors like Hughes Aircraft. And Hughes
Contractors, yeah.
Aircraft, yeah, Hughes Aircraft, they had a lot of people who were getting patents on various chemicals and various, as they would call them, what would atmospheric aerosols is what they were. And one
Hmm.
of the guys, his name's James Chang, 1991, 92. He got I don't know how many um, patents, probably a dozen of them for aerosol spraying. This guy lived right around the corner from my in-laws in Tustin, California. And I drove by his house, I can't tell you how many times. And this guy was involved with that. But Hughes Aircraft was also involved with microwave technology. You know that? And this is
No,
this
I
is
didn't
in
know
the
that.
early '90s. So I'm going to be
Oh yeah.
curious
Okay.
what you have going on with yours, because if there's patents with James Chang on it, I'm just going
Hmm.
to freak out, because that would explain so much that was going on in
Hmm.
that era, because that was all just predating 1992, which is when you really got Agenda 21 on the record books
Hmm.
down there in Rio de Janeiro. And that was really the buildup for all this. And of course, now we have weather modification like you can't believe. And now we have
Yeah.
direct energies being used, energy weapons that are being used against us. And they're
Yeah,
not soft.
absolutely. And one thing I want to say around that is that what people may or may not realize is that Hawaii, or Maui actually in particular, in 2011 and 2016, Hawaii and Japanese stakeholders got together and decided that Maui was going to be the first smart city or smart island And they want, and the thing is they could not build in Lahaina. They could not change things in Lahaina because Lahaina was had a lot of historical preservation. There's a historical preservation law. Well, the governor, I believe it was 22 days before the fire, 22 days before the
Right.
fire, he spends close to 20 laws. He suspended 20 laws. And the first one, historic preservation. Historic preservation was the first law he suspended because you could not build in Lahaina. You can now because it's gone. But the thing is in the what with Agenda 21 is that these banking elite families, they actually have invested in renewable energy and all of these sustainable projects, and it's always for your safety, and it's always for, helping with the environment. And oh yeah, renewable energy is going to be so much better. Renewable energy is more costly and more dangerous an electric car actually takes about 10 times more gallons of water to put out than a regular
Oh
gas
yeah,
fire
yeah.
car, and over 2 hours to put out. In a gas fire car takes about 5 minutes to put out. And they actually had, we're on an island, so we have these electric vehicles coming over on ships, and ships have actually sunk. And the captain is like, it was the something in the battery ignited, they couldn't put it out. And so people need to understand that these renewable energies are not what they say they are.
No, they're
And
not.
the Agenda 21 with these 17 goals of the United Nations, that's actually in the book again, and it's great, MauiLandGrabBook.com. But there's 16 UN agendas that, oh, they have flowery language, stop poverty. Yes, okay, we all want that. But what does that look like through the United Nations? That looks like controlling our food. That looks like GMO foods. And they've even have plastic food out now that I've been seeing that is blowing my mind. That they are putting on us. So what I love about your show, and I'm so grateful for, is that you are bringing awareness to what the heck is going on, because it is really up to the people. And I really do feel this is a spiritual war. And I feel that but our job as people, we cannot just ignore it and act like everything is okay and go on with our life. And oh, yeah, it's a little inconvenient to put my mask on. Oh, it's a little inconvenient, to give up my first child, because this is what's coming, you guys. There, or giving up my home, or to having my home destroyed. It's a little inconvenient to try and find a new house because my house is completely dissolved into nothing, disintegrated. So I love what you guys are about.
Well, thank you, and really appreciate what you're doing. You have a one of the things that we're making big use of are affidavits and or declarations, as they're called.
Good,
And you're
good.
also making, and we do it in the sense of what we're fighting in terms of what the counties are doing and what state level officials are doing that are illegal acts as far as we're concerned.
Mhm.
And we filed probably around, we're getting close to like 100,000 of these declarations on government officials, and we've
I
had
love
great
it.
success with getting these people out of office, actually, as they deserve to be, mostly around the elections and the election machines, which is another fraud that's being put upon us. But we've been doing. I heard you mention the affidavits. How does the affidavits apply to your program?
Well, right now it's showing them how they have violated the Constitution. So we're looking at going into a court case with the governor, and my goal is the Maui police chief and Maui mayor too as well, because oh my
Right.
goodness, the Maui police chief, he's a
That's
whole
a
nother
whole
ball of
other
wax
ball of
there.
wax. I know.
Oh my
We
goodness.
covered him thoroughly. He's from Las Vegas. He was there when they had the mass shooting.
Mhm.
And I think the
Mhm.
governor has some sort of relationship with that as well. We could give you a whole big rundown. We have dossiers on all these guys, and
Oh,
they're
that'd be
clearly
great.
globalists. Yeah, I mean, we could swap good information. I'm sure,
Yep.
because these people are criminals. There's face it. These
They
people are
are.
not. These globalists are all criminals, and they think nothing of wiping out 100,000 people in a heartbeat.
And
That's just
children.
their
And
monster and
children.
children.
They don't
Absolutely.
care. We had the children in Maui were left home alone with no siren. We have the world's best emergency siren, and the guy in charge of the emergency management center, he had zero experience. He got the job over 40 other applicants, and he had
Right.
zero experience. And he actually said that he didn't turn on the siren because he was afraid people would run into the fire, is what he said. So children were left home alone, no warning, no evacuation, plan. And this one lady, she found her son holding his dog in his room, charred, completely charred. That's not how bodies burn. And she said she believes God left him that way so she would remember him. But that's not how. And in the book, I
No.
actually have a there's a body with cornrows. The person has braids in their hair. You can see their hair. You see their whole body, all the fingers and the whole body, except the feet are gone. The feet are gone, and we think that the frequency, the energy was really really hot at the on the floor on the ground. And there was also a video that showed fire kind of dancing on the ground. It would like go out and it would come back, and it would go out and really, really weird. It's not the way fire works. It's not the way fire works at all.
Well, how many children were lost? What's the death? There's the death toll that they say, and then there's the
Mhm.
death toll, and I'll talk about that. How many? How
Yeah.
many do you find?
I think it's like 900. I think it's 900 ish, around there. The official death count was 102 people with only
Hmm.
3 of our children, only 3 children, but I don't think that's even close to it. The teachers, my friend who lives in Maui, she said that her friend is a teacher, and the teacher was given a new roster before school started, and was told that do not contact the parents of the children not on the roster because it will only cause more trauma. So don't contact
Well,
anybody. So they were
I
told that, and they were
called.
given a new roster.
I called the school district because I was a superintendent, right? I kind of know how to do this. So I called and I said, because they were reported what happened in Paradise with the death toll was Corey Honey put out an estimate at one point in time. He thought maybe 3,000 people had died. And then they backed that way off and they said, well, only
Hmm.
87. Well, that only 87 is bodies or body parts that they could find of people. That's how they got that number. The rest of the
Hmm.
people weren't accounted for. So
That's right.
we had information from some of our people that were from Kern County of all places, in the sheriff's auxiliary, and they had been brought up the night of the fire and spent several days looking for bodies that they couldn't find, and they found some parts in automobiles, but they couldn't find everybody. So as we were dancing around and doing our thing from house to house and just doing our studies, they brought in the coroner's trucks, and of course they had all the guys with all the white suits, and they were getting out and they were check marking. So after about 3 or 4 days of this, I finally walked up to the team leader there, and he's all dressed up in a suit, and I said, "Well, how many bodies have you found?" He shook his head. He says, "Well, we have found one." And I said, "So how many are in that roster?" He says, "About 3,000."
Yeah.
And I called, so I knowing that, and they were talking about all the kids are safe, they're being bused, they're doing this. So I called the school district a couple weeks after the fire, and I said, "So how many children do you think died there in Maui?" And he says, "Well, maybe 300." I said, "Really?" I said, "What about the school records? Are the school records there? I mean, looking for proof and evidence about
Hmm.
any kind of transferring." I said to him, because what happens with a student, he has a cume folder, and that folder has to literally be delivered to the next school that they go to, because there was all this talk about the kids had disenrolled and gone to other schools. And
Hmm.
I said, how many of those records have moved on to another school? And he says, not one. We've never gotten a request for any of the cume folders for any of the kids that were going to school in Lahaina. Not one. See, that
Wow.
matches up,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Well, it
Not
does.
one.
Yeah. And then a couple friends of mine told me about 2 different boat captains that pulled one captain said he pulled over 200 bodies out, and the other one said he pulled over 150 bodies out of the water. And those aren't accounted for. We have the official count again is 100 and I believe it's 102. I went to the memorial area and counted at least 140 crosses that are there. But these captains, all of these people signed NDAs. So they're not supposed to speak about it. But honestly, in my opinion, I think that makes them an accomplice to this.
Yeah,
And
it's
also
a
those
criminal behavior.
NDAs, they won't stand in court because it's under duress. So you can't. These people can speak out, but they're very afraid. They've seen things that are unbelievable. My friend who works for national security, one of her friends actually said that he pulled bodies out of the water that were frozen. They were like swimming, and their body was just s- stiff. It wasn't limp. It didn't drown. It died swimming. It died frozen, and that's what we have. We actually have there was my friend who was in the Lahaina burn zone area found a toad, and the toad, I'm just going to plug my book again because the toad is in this book. The toad pictures in this book, and it's greatmauilandgrabbook.com. The toad is it's leaping. The toad is leaping with its legs fully out. You can pick it up and hold it. It's hollow on the inside, but it's
Hmm.
it's literally, you can still see that it's a toad. You can hold it in your hands. It's not, doesn't dissolve. It's not ash. And there's even a, so this fire, whatever happened to these people, I pray that it was really fast, but it was way more than 102 people. And these
Yeah,
people, you're right, they're criminals, and I think they're some type of demon because no human being with a heart could do what they've done.
yeah. Well, listen, Michelle, we have to run for time. I want to thank you very much. Keep up the good work. We'll stay in touch and talk on the phone, and Tiffany will be our go-between. And I still have to make it out to Maui. We actually started talking to some people over there about setting up a new state of Hawaii, and Maui be the center of that new state, because we're doing the new California state thing here, and it's working quite well. Quite frankly, it's working excellent because we are going to
That's
be the
great.
51st state, and it's going to be pretty soon. So we're going to get rid of all this crap now. But the people of Lahaina could actually form their own state, and we did this study. Not just Lahaina and Maui, but if
Hmm.
you just take and separate Oahu from the rest of the islands, you can get
Hmm.
almost a million people, and that would be a great new Hawaii. And some of my friends are over there in Maui right now look at that and say that's a great opportunity. You get yourself away from Honolulu and all the crazies
Hmm.
that are there. So just to
Yep.
kind of plant the seed for you,
Well, and
something
I
to
do
think
want to say
about.
Maui used to be the heart of the islands. Lahaina
That's
was
correct.
actually the capital
That's right.
of
And I think
Hawaii, of ancient
I
Hawaii.
know ancient Hawaii, and
Yeah.
I think in the
Hmm.
front of our website of Agenda 21 Radio, which I haven't put up, but wait a minute, maybe I should put it up just so you can see what it looks like. This is the front cover of our Agenda 21 Radio. That's one of the buildings there
Oh,
in
yep.
Maui or in
Hmm.
Lahaina. But yeah, we would do that. We would. I think that's it is the ancient capital, and why not? They could handle it very well. And it would also be a great way to preserve Maui and preserve
Hmm.
Lahaina, or bring it back in its original context. Listen, thank you very much. Tell us one more time how we can get your book.
GreatMauiLandGrabBook.com. GreatMauiLandGrabBook.com. And it's really great, again, to give to any normies who are just wondering what's going on but have no clue what's coming.
Well, thanks for calling all these other guys who don't get what we're doing normies.
Mm.
It's a very
Yeah,
good.
well, yeah. Well, we actually, we're all in this together, but I think that for whatever reason, some of us came in. It took me one video to realize what the heck is going on. One
Right.
video
It just
that looked through
it hit you.
things. And so,
Yeah,
but yeah, these people still, and I think it's because of trauma. I think they can't, they're emotionally can't go there, but emotionally they need to go there.
they need to exactly. It's
Hmm.
denial, then all of a sudden reality sets in. Listen, thank you very
Hmm.
much. It's been wonderful to have you with us on the show here, Michelle Melendez from Hawaii, and we really do appreciate all the great work that she does. We